Finally, the group of horror films adapted from the novel of the same name has come. The excitement is unparalleled. On an island in Peru, fishermen are preparing to go fishing. After everything is ready, the fishermen take the small boat made by Puwe off the sea and swim deep into the sea. When they reach the destination, the fishermen throw nets and wait for the fish. As the nets sink, the fishermen's hands suddenly tighten. After a while, the fishermen are pulled into the sea. Because they were pulled suddenly, the fishermen did not choose to chase the nets, but chose to get out of the water and take a breath. When the fishermen swim down, a group of fish suddenly appears. When the fishermen release the nets, a large group of fish surround them. They don't give the fish a chance to swim up. At the same time, Charlie, a staff member of the German Maritime Bureau, found something strange. There is something wrong with the marine buoy. So Charlie quickly took the equipment and took the boat to the location of the buoy. When he arrived at the location of the buoy, he tied the boat well and put the equipment on. Then Charlie dived into the water. The situation was obvious. The detector was stuck by the fishing net. In order to restore the buoy to normal, the fishing net must be released, but it was right in front of the buoy. Then there was a rumble from all sides. Charlie became a little panicked. He pulled the fishing net hard and swam up with the detector. When he came out of the water, the boat was not the same as before. The situation became more and more strange. He didn't have time to think. He tied the detector on the buoy and swam towards the boat. He dared not swim for a moment. And something strange happened in Canada. A whale was washed ashore. The body was full of scars and was in a state of death. Animalists suspect that the whale was killed by a fisher in the harbor. So they drove to the harbor to inquire about the situation. An experienced fisherman received him. When the animalist asked about the whale, the fisherman didn't hide it. He took the animalist to see a damaged boat. According to the fisherman, the boat was destroyed by the whale. The whale was very crazy at that time. Fishermen had no choice but to fight back with hooks and blades. For such a statement, the animalist had doubts. Why did the whale do this? Back to the German coast. Because the detector was damaged, Charlie called the repairman to help. The repairman opened the circuit board and found that the internal parts had been burned. So he replaced a new circuit board and told Charlie to be careful. The monitoring station was very boring. To relieve stress, Charlie came to the bar for a drink. Here he met a fisherman. They had a good talk. Then they spent a night together. Because the detector hadn't been launched yet, Charlie decided to launch the detector first. The fisherman thought that it was dangerous for Charlie to go out alone. So he decided to go with Charlie. They had a tacit understanding when they came to the destination. The detector was launched smoothly. However, when Charlie was packing up and ready to leave, the fisherman found a situation. There were some white objects floating on the sea. The fisherman told Charlie about this situation. Charlie hooked a piece with a hook. From Charlie's performance, he could see that he was familiar with this kind of object. In order to let the fisherman understand, Charlie and the fisherman asked for a lighter. As the object was ignited, the fisherman was frightened. In fact, this is a kind of fake water bubble. Early in the morning, it was buried at the bottom of the sea. When it cracks, a fake bubble will be released. Finally, it will freeze into pieces. It's normal to pick a piece on the water. On the sea, it's not a half piece, but a piece. This situation is very abnormal. So Charlie took a picture and sent the video to his superiors. His superiors suggested that he continue to observe. On the Canadian side, the zookeeper found something new by observing the sea. The whale was already in the sea. The zookeeper packed up and set off. Unexpectedly, a sightseeing boat had already set off. On the sea, the zookeeper saw a whale, but from the eyes of the whale, the zookeeper noticed something was wrong. The direction in which the whale swam was the sightseeing boat. So the zookeeper contacted the sightseeing boat, but at that time, the driver of the sightseeing boat had left the driver's seat. Because he couldn't get in touch with the accident, it happened. No. In an instant, everyone fell into the sea. Then the zookeeper came to the scene to rescue. But a group of whales also swam over. With a lot of efforts, the zookeeper saved a few people. At the same time, the whale also started to die. One by one, the whale died. The sightseeing boat's guide saved a little girl. Finally, the whale made it again. Now the situation has improved. A fishing boat caught a lobster. Then the lobster went into the market and was found by a chef. The chef bought it at that time. He decided to make it into a delicacy and sell it in the restaurant. However, something strange happened in the chef's process of processing the lobster. The lobster's abdomen released some unknown white mucus. The chef was curious and took the lobster to observe. As the chef kept approaching the lobster directly spat the mucus on the chef's face. When this happened, the chef decided to take it back. He called his assistant to process the lobster. The assistant gave the lobster to the chef, and he cleaned up the mucus residue. The chef accidentally cut a part of the process of processing the lobster. He wiped the mucus with his hand. Soon after, the chef began to process the lobster. The chef decided to go out and take a break. He let the assistant finish the rest of the process. When he came out, the chef's situation became worse. He couldn't stand still and walk to the corner. The chef fell to the ground with his belly covered. The assistant was not optimistic and was sent to the hospital for treatment. The doctor thought that the assistant had worked in a restaurant. He learned that the assistant had vomited, so he came to the restaurant to find clues. From the waiter's mouth, he learned about the existence of the lobster. He also accidentally learned that the chef in the restaurant had also come into contact with the lobster. So the doctor asked the chef's residence and drove over. Unfortunately, he was one step late. When the doctor found the chef was already in a state of death. At the same time, the assistant in the hospital also lost his vital signs. Although the hospital used all kinds of means, the so-called wave did not stop and the wave began again. A naval inspection ship in Norway also encountered a problem. The inspection ship was preparing to dig under the sea. When he was doing his homework, he found a large number of ice worms. So he contacted Professor Segal. Professor Segal asked the staff to go deep into the water to explore. As a result, the detector was interfered during the exploration process. In order to get better detection data, Professor Segal decided to start with the ice worms. He took a lot of pictures of the ice worms. Through careful observation, Segal summarized the problem. The ice worms he found at the time were not common ice worms. Common ice worms do not reproduce so fast, and their sizes are not so large. Therefore, it can be inferred that this is a new species. Because of the existence of ice worms, the energy company began to work to terminate. When Professor Segal proposed to terminate, the leadership of the energy company was a little reluctant because it depends on the project to make money. So the energy company asked Professor Segal if there was any other way. Professor Segal said that as long as there were more ice worms in other places, the project could continue. The energy company was a little skeptical of their words. They decided to send someone to follow them to see. The probe was launched again. The ice worms were much larger than before. In order to make the energy company give up, Professor Segal decided to try it. As a result, the ship began to shake violently. Then the whole ship turned east to west. That's why this happened. Related experts said that it was caused by the underground rock. The pressure control system failed. The reason was the leak that was not controlled. If it were a smaller ship, the ship would sink with everyone. The fact is that this is the case. An inspection ship in another place also encountered this situation. The people on the ship were the people who helped Charlie repair the probe and Charlie's female colleague. The ship was very quiet at first, but soon it was still a warning light. Charlie was not at the monitoring station at this time, but with the fisherman in the bar. Soon the female colleague's computer began to beep. Then the board on the table was shaking. When the maintenance staff reacted, it was too late. The whole ship was sinking. As the sound of the ice worm appeared, the whole ship shook violently and soon disappeared on the seabed. There were more and more strange events in other countries. In Italy, the canal in the city was not just a simple well, but the whole canal. Gradually, the whole Adriatic Sea was covered by jellyfish. In Mexico, doctors found some clues the dead were killed by bacteria. This kind of bacteria is called tetanus. Once it touches the blood, it produces toxin. At the same time, Canadian animal scientists also began to do experiments on tetanus. The reason for doing this is to find out if there are any pollutants that affect the behavior of tetanus. The whole process went well. Animal scientists found some plastic bags in the stomach of tetanus. But after the test, these plastic bags would not affect the behavior of tetanus. Then the animal scientists found a small blood clot. The experts on the side thought something had grown into the tetanus brain tissue. I didn't find anything. Another major incident happened in Mexico. A car washer was playing with a child. The next second, the child coughed up.